My name is Jack Krebsbach, and I currently study math at Hope College. This presentation is titled Dunes and Drones, a machine learning approach for mapping vegetation using aerial and ground-based photography. Our goal was to create a high-resolution vegetation cover map over an entire dune complex. Our group focused on a complex at Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area in Saugatuck, Michigan, but our method generalizes to other dune complexes as well. Creating a high-resolution vegetation coverage map lets us know what percentage of any given area is covered with live vegetation. This is important information because vegetation is a primary variable that mitigates sediment transport. Dune migration may also impact both ecosystems and human structures. Our map creation process involves collecting images at two different scales. First, we fly over the dune complex and take hundreds of photographs in a pre-mapped route. These photographs are stitched together, creating a single spatially accurate image called an orthomosaic map. In this photograph, you can see several white L-shaped PVC pipes. 50 of these quadrats are used for region identification when acquiring photographs from the ground. In total, we collected 50 photographs of the sites both at a detailed level from the ground, as you can see here, and a more coarse scale with the drone. The ground-based photographs are taken with a regular RGB camera, while the drone photographs use a multispectral camera, which also collect near-infrared and red edge reflectance values. Here are the steps to our workflow. First, we calculate vegetation coverage estimates over the 50 sites with the ground-based photography. Next, we analyze multispectral reflectance values over the same 50 sites in the drone photography. Then, we create an empirical model correlating pixel reflectance in the drone imagery to vegetation coverage estimates. Using the empirical model, we finally calculate vegetation coverage across the entire site. To create initial vegetation coverage maps for the quadrants using ground-based photography, we used machine learning to create a classifier that labeled every pixel inside the quadrant as live vegetation, dead vegetation, or sand. First, we represented the original RGB photographs in different ways by transforming them into different color spaces, such as HSV, and calculating texture measurements using the grade level co-occurrence matrix. This increased the accuracy of the classifier. We trained a random forest classifier on a training set, which uses decision trees to sort groups of pixels at nodes through various branches into different bins. A single tree can label any given pixel, however, an ensemble or forest of trees is almost always more accurate. Here is an example of a classified image. After all the photographs are classified, we can calculate initial vegetation coverage estimates, as you see here, at all 50 sites. Now, we need to connect this vegetation coverage estimate to the pixels in the multispectral drone imagery. We can take advantage of the fact that healthy vegetation going through photosynthesis tends to absorb the red wavelength, while sand and dead vegetation tend to reflect it. There is a large difference in reflectance values of the NIR and red wavelengths for live vegetation, and a low difference for sand and dead vegetation. Normalizing this difference by dividing by the sum of the two wavelengths is called the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, or NDVI. NDVI is important because it allows us to contrast live vegetation with sand with a single numerical value. We calculated NDVI at all 50 sites in the drone imagery. By taking the average NDVI value for all pixels in a single quadrant, we now are able to connect the reflectance values in the drone imagery to the initial vegetation coverage estimates from the ground-based photographs. Taking these two values into account, we can now create an empirical model predicting live vegetation coverage from average NDVI values. By splitting all 50 sites into quarters, we create a total of 200 data points to fit our model to. We can now go to areas in the orthomosaic map where we do not have initial vegetation estimates and apply the model to predict vegetation coverage. If we apply the empirical model to the entire orthomosaic, we can produce a map of vegetation coverage for the entire dune complex. Thanks to the Michigan Space Grant Consortium providing the undergraduate fellowship. And thank you to the Math and Geology Department of Hope College for supporting my work.